Elvis Presley had performed thousands of shows, but on June 26, 1977, Indianapolis, something happened no one expected. In the middle of his final gospel song, his voice cracked, then completely broke. And before security could react, Lisa Marie ran toward the stage, desperate to reach her father before the world saw him fall apart. June 26, 1977, Market Square Arena, Indianapolis. The air felt heavier than the usual pre-show buzz. Nearly 18,000 fans filled the seats, waving signs, clutching old ticket stubs, hoping Elvis had one more spark left in him. The arena lights glowed gold across the crowd, making the whole place shimmer like a sunrise. Backstage, it was a different story. Elvis paced slowly, breathing harder than normal. Sweat gathered along his neck despite the cool air. He dabbed at his face with a lace handkerchief he kept folded in his palm. Charlie Hodge watched him closely, worry hiding behind a polite smile. Even the sweet inspirations noticed something was off. Elvis's shoulders slumped in a way they hadn't seen before. Lisa Marie sat near the wings, legs dangling from a metal equipment trunk, quietly swinging her feet. She was only 9, but children sense things adults try to hide. She studied her father with wide, uneasy eyes, her fingers curled tightly around the edge of the trunk. A stagehand whispered, 2 minutes. Elvis nodded, but his hand shook as he straightened his jumpsuit collar. He forced a breath through his lungs, the kind that tries to push fear aside. He put on the smile, the one the world expected, but tonight it looked thin, fragile, stretched too far. The opening band finished their last chord. The crowd erupted. The roar surged through the walls like a wave, vibrating the floor. Fans stomped, clapped, shouted his name. Camera flashes flickered like tiny bolts of lightning. The energy outside was wild, hopeful, overflowing. Elvis stepped toward the stage entrance. Lisa whispered, "Daddy." He paused, looking at her for a long second. His eyes softened, but behind them was something she had never seen before, a kind of tiredness deeper than sleep. "I'll be okay, honey," he murmured. But even she knew it wasn't the truth. The announcer's voice boomed through the arena. "Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis Presley." The place exploded. Elvis walked out under the blinding lights. The applause shook the steel beams overhead. Some fans were already crying. Others reached their hands out as if they could touch the legend himself. He waved, smiled again, lifted the mic. But up close, the smile didn't reach his eyes. The band launched into the opener. Elvis sang the notes, but the power wasn't there. His voice wavered. His breath shortened. Charlie handed him water between verses, but Elvis barely touched it. In the third row, a fan noticed him stumble slightly on a turn. Another whispered, "He doesn't look right." Lisa watched from the wings, gripping the railing so tightly her knuckles turned white. She leaned forward, her small body tense, as if she were ready to run even then. Elvis kept pushing through the set list like a man trying to outrun something he didn't want to name. The crowd cheered, unaware. But the musicians exchanged glances. J.D. Sumner lowered his bass mic for a moment, concern carved into his face. The spotlight followed Elvis as he crossed the stage. He smiled again. It looked like it hurt. Have you ever watched someone you love push past their breaking point? Would you have stepped in even if the whole world was watching? Elvis moved to the center of the stage. The band quieted. He raised his hand. And when he reached the gospel section, everything changed. The concert moved forward, but something in the air felt shaky, like a table with one uneven leg. Elvis finished "You Gave Me a Mountain," wiping sweat from his forehead with the lace handkerchief. His breathing was louder than the applause. Charlie noticed.
J.D. Sumner noticed.
Even the drummer lowered his sticks for a moment, waiting for Elvis to signal the next song. But Elvis didn't speak. He just stared ahead, eyes distant, as if listening for something only he could hear. Then, without warning, he lifted the mic and said softly, "Let's do a gospel medley." The band froze. It wasn't on the set list, wasn't rehearsed, wasn't expected. A ripple of confusion passed across the stage. Charlie shot a glance at the conductor. The sweet inspirations shifted nervously. Nobody dared object, but everyone felt the shift. Gospel was where Elvis exposed the truest part of himself. But gospel also demanded control, breath, strength. Tonight, he barely had any. Still, the pianist nodded, placing trembling fingers on the keys. The first warm chord echoed across the arena, washing over the crowd like sunlight breaking through clouds. The lights dimmed, narrowing into a soft halo around Elvis. Lisa Marie leaned forward in her seat near the sound booth. Her small hands slid along the railing. She didn't blink. Something was wrong. She felt it. Elvis closed his eyes, pressing the mic close to his lips. The audience quieted instantly. 18,000 people sensing this moment balanced on a fragile edge. You could hear programs folding.
Camera shutters clicking.
A single fan whispering, "Oh my God." The piano eased into the beginning of "How Great Thou Art." Elvis inhaled. His shoulders rose slowly, like lifting a weight he shouldn't be carrying. He began to sing, but the first line shook, barely audible, thin as a cracked violin string. The backup singers shot a look toward each other. The conductor lowered his baton, waiting for Elvis to steady himself. He didn't. He tried again, pushing harder, but his voice wavered, breaking like something inside him had finally snapped. A murmur rolled through the arena. Not loud, not chaotic, just the sound of thousands of hearts tightening all at once. Lisa's eyes widened. Her breath caught. She whispered, "Daddy." Elvis gripped the microphone stand. His fingers whitened. His chest rose unevenly. Sweat traced down his jaw. The spotlight trembled with the motion of the stage, making him look smaller, more fragile than anyone in the crowd had ever seen him. Have you ever watched someone you love stand on a ledge only they can feel? Have you ever wanted to run to them even though the whole world was watching? The pianist softened the chords, trying to give Elvis room to catch his breath. But instead of recovering, Elvis shook his head slowly, a tiny gesture only those closest could see. Then came the moment no one forgot. Elvis opened his mouth to sing the next line, and his voice cracked, loud, sharp, painful, the kind of crack that doesn't come from missing a note, but from carrying too much for too long. A gasp swept through the arena. Security shifted at the stairs. Charlie took one step forward. Elvis tried again, desperate. Cracked a second time. The hush deepened. Then came the third attempt, the one that broke everything open. His voice didn't just crack. Collapsed. The sound fell apart mid-note, trembling into silence. Elvis lowered his head. The mic trembled in his hand. The piano faded. Lisa Marie stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. And as the entire arena held its breath, waiting for him to continue, his voice broke completely. The silence after Elvis's broken note didn't feel like normal silence. It felt like the air itself was holding its breath. 18,000 people froze at once. No whispers. No shifting in seats. Just a stunned, heavy stillness hanging over Market Square Arena. Elvis kept his head bowed. His chest rose unevenly, like each breath was fighting its way out. The microphone trembled in his hand. The spotlight that once made him glow now made him look exposed, small, achingly human. Charlie Hodge took one cautious step toward him, but Elvis lifted his hand slightly, not in strength, but in a quiet plea. "Give me a moment." The band softened to a near whisper. J.D. Sumner stared at Elvis, lips parted, the bass note caught in his throat. Lisa Marie, standing near the sound booth, clutched the railing so hard her fingertips went white. She had never seen her father like this. Not on stage. Not in public. Not drowning in the very music that once lifted him. The pianist tried easing into the next chord, giving Elvis room to recover. But Elvis didn't lift his head. His shoulders shook slightly. Not dramatically, just enough to reveal a man fighting back emotion he could no longer control. The crowd stared, terrified to move. A fan in the front row pressed a hand to her mouth. Another lowered his camera, unable to take another picture. Someone whispered, "Is he okay?" But the sound died instantly in the tension. Elvis finally raised his head a little. His eyes glistened. Tears. Real tears. The kind no performer can fake. He opened his mouth to sing the next line, but nothing came. His throat caught. The mic picked up a faint, broken inhale. Lisa stepped forward. Her small voice whispered into the air around her. "Daddy." Her lips trembled. She didn't know whether to run or stay put. She looked to the guards, but they were frozen too. Unsure if this was a medical emergency or a private moment they had no right to interrupt. Elvis blinked hard, struggling to regain control. His hand slipped on the microphone stand. The metal clanged softly, echoing throughout the silent arena like a bell. He took a shaky step backward, then another. His heel bumped the piano bench behind him, and he grabbed the piano edge for balance. The audience gasped. A sharp, collective sound that cut the room in half. This wasn't performance emotion. This wasn't artistry. This wasn't drama. This was collapse. Elvis braced himself on the piano, head lowered, shoulders shaking. His jumpsuit shimmered under the lights, but the shine only made his fragility stand out more. Charlie stepped forward again, concern carved deep into his face. But Elvis shook his head gently, barely lifting his eyes. His lips parted. A whisper, soft, cracked, almost lost in the microphone, escaped. "Lisa." The name didn't boom. It didn't echo. It slipped out like a plea. Only a few people heard it clearly, but Lisa did. Her heart dropped into her stomach. Her breath left her body in a small, frightened gasp. She tried to step forward, but a security guard instinctively blocked her path, thinking she was just a child moving too close to the stage. But then Elvis whispered again, only this time louder, hoarse, trembling. "I can't." The phrase crumbled halfway through, but the meaning was unmistakable. Lisa pressed her palms against the railing, tears filling her eyes. Have you ever watched someone you love fall apart so slowly, and yet so suddenly, that you can't tell when the breaking began? Have you ever stood helpless while the strongest person in your world revealed the truth you never wanted to see? Elvis tried to stand upright again. His knees wobbled. His hand slipped from the piano. The mic sagged toward the floor. The arena reacted like a living creature. A low, rolling gasp that seemed to come from every direction at once. Charlie rushed forward. The sweet inspirations stepped closer. Even the drummer stood up, abandoning his kit. But before anyone could reach him, Elvis lifted the mic again, tried to force one more line of the gospel song, and his voice didn't just tremble. It broke completely, shattering into a painful half-sob the audience would remember for the rest of their lives. Lisa's eyes widened as her father's whisper drifted through the speakers, a line so soft only she truly caught it. And then Elvis whispered a line only Lisa could hear. "I can't do this alone." The whisper came softly through the microphone, barely audible over the lingering hum of the arena speakers. "I can't do this alone." 18,000 people froze in place. The words weren't a lyric, not a line from a song. They were raw, real, unfiltered truth. The audience didn't understand yet, but the tension pressed down like a heavy curtain. The band slowed, the piano softened, and even the lights seemed to dim a little, as if the arena itself held its breath. Lisa Marie's small hands gripped the railing in front of her. She had been watching, frozen in her seat, but the moment the words reached her ears, something inside her shifted. She stood up, but the adults near her hesitated, unsure if she should move. Something stronger than caution propelled her forward. A daughter's instinct. She needed to reach him. Security moved instinctively, stepping toward the stage to protect Elvis. They didn't know what they were protecting him from. They didn't see the connection forming in a child's mind, the silent understanding that this was a father in need, not a performer faltering. The crowd sensed it. Whispers rose and fell like waves. Eyes turned. Hands froze mid-clap. A heavy, collective tension rolled over the arena floor. Elvis lowered his head slightly, shoulders tense. He was human now in a way the cameras had never captured. The strength he showed for decades had finally given way, and all that remained was a father, raw and exposed. He inhaled shakily, hand trembling as it gripped the microphone. Lisa Marie moved faster. Small, determined steps. She pushed past ushers, politely trying to guide her back. Her eyes never left her father. She could feel his struggle even from the wings. What happens inside a child's heart when they see their parent break? She might have thought. What happens inside a parent's heart when their child tries to save them? Elvis caught a glimpse of her moving across the stage. His eyes softened, a small, trembling smile flickering briefly. Even in this moment of vulnerability, he recognized the bravery in the little figure racing toward him. The microphone wobbled in his hand. A note slipped, cracked, and caught in the middle of the room. Gasps rolled through the audience, but no one moved, afraid to break the fragile moment. The piano keys vibrated softly beneath his arm as he steadied himself against the bench. The spotlight held him like a fragile jewel, illuminating the sweat, the weariness, and the unspoken plea in his eyes. Security hesitated, unsure whether to intervene or trust the unfolding scene. The band continued with a softer hum, giving him space, allowing the invisible connection to form. Lisa Marie was almost there now. Elvis whispered again, voice shaking, words meant for no one but her. "Come on, baby, help me." The arena seemed to vanish. No fans, no clapping. Only her father, broken and human, and a daughter running to hold him steady. She reached him just as his knees buckled slightly and he collapsed toward the piano bench. The world held its breath. Every eye in the arena watched. Every heart thumped. It was a pause heavy with humanity, a moment no camera could fully capture. A father, a daughter, a legend, stripped down to raw emotion, standing on a stage meant for performance but filled with truth instead. And in that pause, everything changed. Lisa Marie reached her father's side just as he collapsed onto the piano bench. Her small arms wrapped around him instinctively, and the microphone wobbled between them. Elvis pressed his forehead to hers, shaking, breathing uneven, every muscle tense yet slowly releasing. The arena was silent. 18,000 hearts beat as one. Fans leaned forward, unsure if they should cheer, cry, or simply watch. Cameras hovered, capturing nothing compared to what was unfolding in real life. Elvis closed his eyes. The tremor in his hands faded slightly as Lisa whispered softly, "Daddy, please stop." Her words were a lifeline, a fragile bridge between panic and calm. Charlie Hodge stepped closer, giving them space, understanding that nothing could replace this human connection. The sweet inspirations glanced at each other. Their voices softened. The piano hummed low, holding a cushion for Elvis's trembling, letting him lean on sound and silence alike. He pulled a shaky breath. His shoulders lifted, then one more, and slowly, with Lisa by his side, he lifted the microphone back to his lips. The notes that followed were not perfect, but they were steady. Not the booming, commanding voice of a star, but the vulnerable, sincere voice of a man who had just been reminded why he sang, why he lived, and who he sang for. The crowd erupted, but gently at first, then louder. Cheers and applause rolled through the arena like waves, not mocking, not dismissive, an affirmation, a shared understanding of human frailty and love's power. Elvis's hands gripped the mic stand tighter, but this time without trembling. He glanced at Lisa, and she smiled through tears. That smile, small, innocent, fierce, gave him the strength to finish the gospel refrain. Every word carried a weight of history, love, and redemption. Have you ever seen a single act of love pull someone back from the edge? Have you ever watched a child become the anchor for someone who was once larger than life? The band kept pace. The sweet inspirations harmonized with care, and the piano wrapped around him like a gentle hand. The arena absorbed the moment. Nothing else existed, just father, daughter, and music healing in real time. Then came the final note. Elvis held it. It wavered slightly, then steadied. The crowd's collective breath released in a long, reverent exhale. Tears, applause, and soft shouts intertwined in a symphony of witness. For decades, the world would remember this moment. Not because he faltered, not because he broke, but because Lisa's small act, her courage, her love, had reminded everyone that even legends need saving sometimes. The cameras captured images, but they missed the quiet details. The slight tremor of Lisa's hand against his back, the soft tear sliding down his cheek, the way he leaned into her without speaking a word. When he finally stood, he looked out at the audience. He waved softly, a man who had touched the edge of collapse and returned, carried not by fame, but by family. The arena roared once more, but now in a different way, not just cheering for a performer, but witnessing a human, flawed and magnificent, made whole for a fleeting moment by love. And though the night would continue, though songs would play and lights would shine, the real magic had already happened. But the real legacy of that moment came years later. For decades, the footage and audio of that night remained tucked away in private archives. Crew members whispered about it, saying it was the most human moment Elvis had ever revealed. Fans who had attended spoke in hushed tones about the trembling, about the way Lisa Marie had run to her father, about the hush that fell over 18,000 people when the stage lights caught the small figure beside the legend. No one could describe it fully. Not the cameras, not the microphones, not even the most seasoned journalists. Something about it was too fragile, too real to be entirely captured. Years later, a sound engineer discovered the original reels. He cleaned, restored, and digitized the audio, a careful process, slow and deliberate. When the first clip circulated, it spread like wildfire. Not because Elvis faltered, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. The audience didn't just see a performer. They saw a father, a man, a human breaking and being saved by love. Letters poured in from fans worldwide. Some wrote about parents they hadn't forgiven. Others wrote about moments they had failed to step forward when loved ones needed them. Many simply expressed gratitude for witnessing something so raw, so honest, so unfiltered. Graceland's staff reported people leaving flowers and notes at the arena's gates long after the footage went public. Small mementos, handwritten messages, scraps of sheet music, tiny cassette drawings began appearing, each a quiet tribute to a moment that had touched hearts. Lisa Marie spoke about the incident publicly in a rare interview. She said that night she realized her father wasn't just Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. He was human, vulnerable, capable of fear, love, and fragility just like everyone else. Her words reminded fans that even legends are not immune to moments of collapse, and that sometimes the smallest act of courage, a child running to their parent, could save more than a song. The story became a lesson passed down in fan clubs and whispered in interviews. It wasn't about fame. It wasn't about performance. It was about human connection. The restored clip eventually made its way into documentaries and special releases. Fans watched it countless times, noting the details they hadn't seen before. The way his knees buckled, the tremor in his hand, the way Lisa Marie's small frame steadied him. A plaque was later placed near the arena site to commemorate that final tour, highlighting the moment not for spectacle, but for love. The anecdote shaped how people remembered not just the show, but Elvis himself. His legacy expanded beyond hits, stages, and gold records. It now included the evening when vulnerability met bravery, when love saved a legend from the brink, and when the human heart was placed before performance. And eventually, this moment shaped how Lisa remembered her father forever. Lisa Marie later reflected on that final show with a clarity few could claim. She described the moment she ran to her father not as spectacle, but as a lesson. Elvis wasn't just the king of rock and roll. He was a human being, fragile, exhausted, capable of collapse, and capable of being rescued by love. That night, she realized the stage, the lights, and the applause meant nothing compared to family, to connection, to presence. The audience had witnessed a moment that words could scarcely describe. The roar of fans, the hush, the fragile tremor in Elvis's voice. It became a shared memory, a testament to the humanity behind the legend. Even decades later, the footage continues to resonate. It teaches that even those who seem larger than life can falter, and that the greatest courage sometimes comes from stepping forward, even as a child, to help someone you love. Lisa Marie's action didn't just save a performance. It preserved a memory of her father's humanity, his vulnerability, and the depth of his love. Fans around the world recognized it instantly. They saw themselves in that arena. Moments they felt powerless, moments they've been saved by someone else's bravery. That night became more than a show. It became a lesson, a story passed down in interviews, fan clubs, and remembrances every year. Even now, when people talk about Elvis's final tour, they remember that singular, fragile, triumphant moment. Not for the music, not for the fame, but for love, courage, and connection. And that is why this story refuses to fade. If this story moved you, share it with someone who cherishes the fragile, human moments behind the legends. Tell us, which part of Elvis and Lisa's bond touched you most? Your voice keeps memories alive and reminds us all that even heroes need saving. Watch the next story for more truth behind the legend.